Welcome. For those of you who can't make it upstairs, we have an exhibit we'd like to show you. This is the marsh room. The club members enjoy duck hunting over the streams and ponds on the property. They also enjoyed, some of them, hunting in the marshes and out on the bay. What we've created here is a display to illustrate how and what a marsh hunting scene would have looked like. To help explain, I've got Craig Kessler who's joining us today. Craig was a guide here at the club.
What I wanted to share with you this morning in a somewhat cursory fashion is some of the equipment and the scenario in which people would be hunting waterfowl in a place like the mouth of the Connetquot River, which is somewhat depicted by this image on the background. And some of the equipment and some of the waterfowl species that were actually hunted. What you're looking at here is reminiscent of the way that hunting would have been practiced in late 1800s, early 1900s, and this represents what's called a grass boat. You can see that it's camouflaged or covered with grass to make it look like it's part of the actual marsh scenario that you're hunting in. The birds that you would be hunting are called puddle ducks, and they are found in the shallow puddles or shallow creeks and form one group of ducks characterized by about 12 different species, one of which is the black duck. And I'm going to show you a pair of black ducks in a moment, but these are black duck decoys. A decoy is something that was actually used to lure the ducks toward the hunter and get them in close range, and that means within 20 or 30 to 40 yards away, to be able to bag a duck in a proper fashion so you didn't send it off crippled or lost. So the decoys would be set in the water. One hunter would lay in this boat on his back, looking out across the bow, out over the scenario, looking for some waterfowl to come his way, as you are depicted in that picture. What I wanted to point out here was the primary species of waterfowl that were hunted here on the East Coast in the puddle duck family. These are black duck, American black duck. The male, or drake, is the one standing on the log and has a somewhat olive drab bill, and the female, or hen, has a bill that is deeper green and is mottled. That was the primary waterfowl species that existed on the Atlantic seaboard in the marsh-type settings up until about the middle of the last century, maybe 1940, 1950. Then their numbers started to plummet greatly. And one of the things that you have to realize about waterfowl hunters is they are some of the best conservationists in North America, as depicted by this image right here, which represents a migratory bird hunting stamp. Every waterfowler is required to purchase one of these every year, and back in 1960 it cost $3. It now costs $25. The monies from those stamps created the entire National Wildlife Refuge System. So while you may think hunting is contributing to declining the birds' numbers, it in fact is contributing in the biggest way possible to preserving the habitat where these birds live and their numbers themselves. One of the things I wanted to point out to illustrate the point I just made is the original constitution and bylaws of the Southside Sportsmen's Club, formed in 1907, was to protect and promote the game birds and fish that lived on these properties. So once again, it illustrates how conservation is an important component of a sportsman's life. And over on this wall are some more documentation of exactly how this happened. Going back to 1930, an organization called More Game Birds in America was founded. That subsequently became Ducks Unlimited, which exists today as one of the premier conservation organizations in North America. As an example of the Ducks Unlimited magazine, and some other things. Audubon recognizes how important a group like Ducks Unlimited and Sportsmen are. And you can see that many of the members, such as George Bird Grinnell, were original members of not only Audubon, but of Ducks Unlimited, and also something called the Boone and Crockett Club, which had to do with big game. One of the other displays that we're working on is not quite as far along as this one, but we wanted to show you another aspect of waterfowl hunting here on Long Island. And I'm going to turn it back over to John Remmer at this point.
We call this the bay room. And in this portion of it, we have what is called a scooter. This boat was used for hunting out in the open waters of the Great South Bay. The primary quarry was the broad-billed duck. The early scooters were designed for one man and could be rowed, sailed, or towed. They had runners on their bottoms, so if the bay was frozen, they could be poled or sailed over the ice to reach the open water. This scooter was designed for two men. It was towed by a mother boat to the hunting site along with a stool boat. The stool boat carried the decoys or stool. It also transported the hunters between the mother boat and the scooter, as well as pick up any ducks which had been shot. The rig, as it was called, consisted of the scooter and the decoys. When the bay was frozen over, hunting was done with a scooter on runners to reach an open area in the ice, and a dozen or so decoys were used. If the mother boat could go out, then the rig would be much larger, with 100 to 200 decoys, hence the need for a stool boat. With this scenario, there would be a number of hunters. One or two of the hunters would be in the scooter. The balance would remain on the mother boat, perhaps enjoying the comfort afforded by a small coal stove and warm chowder. Scooters were painted a dull light gray to mimic ice cakes or cookies. Some had wave patterns painted on the side. Light gray canvas covered the hunters, who were dressed in white or light gray. If the hunter saw a small group of ducks some distance away, he might quickly wave a small black flag to attract them. This would simulate a duck landing in the rig.
Our enthusiasm for putting this display together is predicated upon our years of hunting together, which we continue to hope to do for a few more years. We hope you enjoyed it.
The Connetquot River State Park Preserve and its environs here near the mouth of the Connetquot River represent some very critical and important habitats that existed back in the 1800s and still provide waterfowl habitat here today. And it's been our pleasure to provide you with this short story about waterfowl hunting.